Hey there, welcome back to the Resonature Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Denton, and I just want to do a little setup before we get into the interview today. A few years ago, a friend asked me, have you ever heard the Innerverse Podcast? And I put it on, and my mind was instantly blown because of the caliber of guests that they were on, but also because of the host, Chance Garton, who is the guest today, and his ability to communicate, to be on par with these guests, to really elevate the conversations that some of these guests were having on other podcasts into, expanding these topics. And I was just like, right away, I was just like, this guy gets it. And actually, a few days later, I had an opportunity to meet him. So we instantly hit it off, became really good buddies. And since then, we are in communication quite a bit, sharing with one another and collaborating with one another. You'll find a whole series I did over on the Innerverse Podcast. I think the website is interversepodcast.com. We did a whole series on Herbalism with some of our other friends, and that was really fun. But we've kept in touch a lot because Chance has been my mentor in so many ways in Biofield tuning, and also the autodidactic nature of, energy healing for that matter. And the things that I get to offer are to teach about the things that I'm learning about herbs. And so together, we're always bouncing ideas off of each other about how to innovate the field of biofield tuning and herbalism, bringing these two things together, exploring new things, and to have somebody with the quality of mind like Chance to be able to bounce these ideas off of or hear his inputs and share our case studies. But also, we're friends, we're good friends. And we also had children around the same time as each other. So we just get to, a lot of the times that we're not on podcasts, we're just chatting with each other about, our young kids and fun things like that. So hopefully in this podcast, you can hear the mutual respect that we have for each other, the love that we have for each other as men, and also as, for each other's families. But that's what this conversation is going to be a lot about, is biofield tuning, herbalism, divination. And so without further ado, well, one more ado, and that is make sure you go to interversepodcast.com, check out all the Chance's offerings, check out his amazing backlog of episodes. There's just a masterclass for each one, for each guest. But also you can book with a biofield tuning session with him, and he is excellent. He is the best. So without further ado, now we'll welcome Chance in. Welcome to the Resonature Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Denton, and today I'm joined by a good buddy of mine, Chance Garton. You may recognize his sultry voice of the internet from the Innerverse Podcast. We've done many hours of work together over on his channel. So a lot of you know him already. A lot of you that are on my audience, we've done, I was thinking like 20 to 30 hours of Herbalism over on the Innerverse channel.
Probably 30 plus.
Yeah, maybe.
There's 30. Like 15 of those, and some of them are over 3 hours.
And you also might recognize his voice from the audiobook series of Inner World. And were you the narrator of The Charter as well?
I wish. I'm not good enough for that. But yeah, you're talking about Spirit World, Dylan Sakoshio's books. Inner World is our podcast. I'm interrupting your intro. I hate when they do that. Sorry, buddy.
No, there's actually, that's what I was going to say is, why don't you tell people the real thing about yourself, what work you've been up to, and just welcome to the show, Chance.
Hey, buddy. It's good to be here. Always fun to hang with you. Kyle is one of those good friends, best friends that, we're sharing baby pictures with each other and just having catch-up phone calls. So recording a podcast, it feels so formal, but
right.
It doesn't have to, right? Okay, so what I do, your audience, some of them probably know me, and I love that. I think we have excellent crossover.
Yep.
I'm the biofield tuner who is the student of Kyle's herbalism wisdom. And, there's some vice versa there. Kyle's been doing some tunings, and it's really cool how our skill sets have been helping each other along. And then aside from that, and maybe the main thing is I'm a podcaster for 10 years. Interversepodcast.com is where you can find my work. I've got a bunch of different shows, including the Herbalism series that we did back in the day. That one ages like fine wine, even though it's a couple of years old. it's relevant. It's going to continue to be relevant. It's the thing I go back to for little nuggets of gnosis about particular plants and how they correspond to astrological configurations, archetypes, planets, constellations. I got Inner World. That's one of my shows that I do with Dylan Sicosio. That one's a lot of fun, where we dig into the mythology, symbolism, ancient history, esotericism, the keys to the mystery school tradition that was a universal priesthood at one point. That's a whole other conversation, maybe not in the that's out in the weeds, and we want to be in the garden here today with Kyle. I could go on. I know there's a lot of things that I've been up to. There's some audiobooks I narrated for Dylan, in the same vein as our Inner World show, and I'm pretty proud of that work. Again, it's just like the Herbs series, kind of like timeless, and every time you revisit it, you're gonna make connections and remember new things from it that will be helpful and relevant. So, that's a little bit about me. Make podcasts, tune humans, have a baby. That's about it.
Yeah, that's a lot though. I have to say, like, I'm not presuming at all to hold a candle to this, to your flame. I am so inspired by your podcasting though. I would say, it is to me, my opinion, the best podcast there is. And I'll give you some of the people, the reasons why. Your guests are amazing, and they are the top tier level of of the particular subject of thought. And not only that, but you as a host are able to hang in there with them. And the way that your podcast is always evolving and getting better, for example, the way that your studio looks now, it's just super cool and professional. And I'm sure there's podcasts out there that, that have hundreds of thousands of listeners, that have, people that are getting paid $40,000 to do the sound engineering and a year and things like that. And it's all you, man. It's all you. And I think it's just so awesome. You're a real inspiration to going out and doing something and then crushing at it. And one of the things that really inspired me about that in your work, in addition to the podcasting, is your work with Biofield tuning. So that's what I want to get into really, is to start off our conversation, is how you came across Biofield tuning. Now, this is a subject that you and I have both talked about a lot on your channel, on my channel, but I feel like it's a really good conversation to just like put us together. Let's just talk about Biofield tuning. Let's just remind the people about the premise of the Biofield, what it is, and then maybe we can just kind of geek out about our own little style as relative to how we learned it, and then the tradition that Biofield tuning is. So you want to take it away from there?
Sure, man. And I appreciate the kind words about my show. When I started it, I had no idea what I was doing. Or, it probably took a solid 5 years before I even really knew what the point of me doing it was. And that there was a long period where the intention was I was just trying to figure out how the heck people were able to go create something or follow what they feel was their purpose and make a living out of that and not have to do a 9 to 5. It took me quite a while because nobody could actually tell me the answer to that until I figured out that it was a leap of faith and I took it. And there were some parts of self that were left fragmented in my timeline that needed to be brought back as well before I could get that last oomph of, inspiration and courage. But tuning is something I came across around 2019. I found Eileen on a few podcasts. Eileen Day McCusick, author of Tuning the Human Biofield and Electric Body, Electric Health, the creator of the Biofield Tuning Store and the training modules that she offers people in person and online. You and I are kind of weird that we are self-taught tuners. And I mean, I don't think it's, I guess, that weird because Eileen, who teaches people, she's the self-taught original, right?
Right.
It was important to me that I discovered it for myself, that it was something that was really there rather than being told what to look for or how to do it. I did, of course, learn about the biofield anatomy from Eileen's books, and that was kind of my template. And I had notes of what was supposed to be where as I practice on people and kept finding that, yep, this is absolutely true. And I had a personal background in energy healing, not in not in a trained way, or like I never got attuned for Reiki or whatever. But I was that guy at the music festival who, when, there's your squad comes across a person who's like in the K-hole, or they're having a bad time in their trip. They're, disassociated completely. I could bring those people back. I had something about, I don't know, innate to me that is a particular aptitude for, waving a crystal around someone's head and they no longer felt like they're going to puke, or whatever the case, like just grounding people.
Mhm.
And that's a bigger story. What was going on with me back in those early years? Because felt like I got some kind of like initiation into my future self, where there was a fast forward button put on my level of experience and skill set and knowledge, that got taken away eventually. And then I had to sort of build back up from the ground. And tuning was a big way that I was able to do that, learning about the biofield anatomy firsthand by having my encounter with Eileen's work coincide with a pretty bad and long-term shoulder injury that just would not get better no matter what I tried. I've told this story in a lot of places, but what ended up happening is I got one of her weighted tuning forks and I started using it on this injured shoulder, and it was better so quickly that it was like, this can't be right, like according to the mainstream model of how things are supposed to heal and the physical components of the body. What I was not expecting is that the life situations that corresponded to this physical injury that manifested by shifting the energetic imbalance that was bringing about this recurrent shoulder injury, it was going to lead me into, having to really process some unprocessed guilt, or I'm sorry, grief, grief, different G word, grief, loss, sadness, things like that,
Yeah.
through the experience of getting a divorce and, some really hard stuff in my life at that time that was absolutely what it needed to be. And actually, it didn't take very long before I was on the other side of the hard part of it. And life was just 1,000 times better. And I felt more like myself. I had this shoulder injury in a nutshell because it was a physical expression of my personal, my personal narrative and posture towards feminine energy in the world, which was up until that point and in every relationship was like, I'm the nice guy. I'm the nice empathic guy who's just kind of bullied by narcissistic vampiric types, but I'm such a good person. I'm the hero that I let them treat me bad, but I still try to help them. And so I was constantly putting my needs and my mission, my personal purpose on hold for the illusion of fixing somebody else's life or propping up somebody else's life. And
That's a big collective energy going on right now too,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, and that was my excuse for not facing my own fear of what my potential was. I think that was actually the deeper part is
Mm.
people talk about a fear of failure. I think I had a fear of what my potential really was because when you start to step into that, it's a much steeper cliff without a safety net than when you're just kind of doing the lane that was laid out for you. And then on the other part of it is like, what if my potential, I step into it and it's not actually that big? That was the real fear, was like finding out what the limit of it was, that maybe it wasn't so great. And yeah, I kind of went from there. I experienced this huge transformation in my body and my life, told me that there was definitely something to biofield anatomy, and began practicing on friends. And, eventually, because of having an audience for my podcast, was able to generate some more practice through people that were listening who would hit me up for a session in those early days, the training wheels days. And now it's like, I do that several days a week, and it's a good 50-50 for my life because I'm the type of person I can't really sit and do the same thing 40 hours a week. So it's nice to be able to bounce between one thing and another.
It's what you're describing is the phenomenology of finding something that is hard to quantify, like grief, sadness, guilt, shame, all of these things. It's like, where do you put them into a machine? And it reads out a report that, like, this person, whoa, look at it. This was grief's off the charts. That machine, that handiwork, so to speak, is our own physiology. It's our own biology. And so for a lot of people that feel like, I don't feel like I need to be apologetic to the practice of biofield tuning, but I do know that there's a lot of people who are like, I'm not really sure. How does this work? How does it make sense? But we can understand the phenomenology of how our, the expressions of our body or the limitations of our body, where tension comes in, or other qualitative aspects such as heat or inflammation or cold achiness or tension, these types of things, or where we're leaking, where we're most prone to injury. And this is
I have a quick story.
Go for it.
Do you mind me interrupting?
No, it's just,
okay.
We're just flowing, man.
6 months ago, you mentioned some people are just like, I don't know how this works or if it's real. You've heard this story, I'm sure, and I've told it before, but it's still one of my top favorites. 6 months ago, my dad had a out-of-town cousin visiting, and this is a guy who I just know from, every couple of years, seeing him for a couple hours at a family reunion or something. Don't know him super well, but what I do know about him is my whole experience in his acquaintance. He's had crippling, debilitating back pain, and we were visiting, and it was so intense that, like, I actually kind of avoided him the whole time that I was over there visiting, because I could tell that the pain body radiation was agitating to my daughter, actually. But as we were about to go, I brought my giant tuning fork hammer of Thor, I call it Big G, over with the idea of, like, maybe I'll try to help this guy's hurt back. But I was super reluctant and hesitant and, not sure about myself, even though I know that it's a real thing. There's this thing in the back of my mind, like, well, here's a hospital attending doctor believer. That's what I call them.
That's great rhetoric.
Is this gonna be is this gonna be like an embarrassment if I do this in front of my family? And he's just like, what are you doing? But
the limits of your potential once again.
By the time I was getting ready to leave, he was in such obvious, like, agony and pain. He was saying he was about to go to bed, even though it was not even 7 yet. He's like, I can't do anything. It's just hurting me too much. So I get out Big G and I just say, hey, stand here in the middle of the living room. Just stand here. I'm going to do something. Okay. I'm going to try to help you with this pain. And hit the fork, start sweeping it. Literally no ceremony, no setup, no pomp. Right? I just stand him there. I get out the fork, I hit it, and I look for the spot. First, I just go up and down his back and look for, like, where's the center of this? And it's like, bing,
what are
bing,
you feeling for when that's occurring?
My ears pop. I just get my ears pop and click inside my head.
And that's unique for you.
It seems to be. I don't know anyone else who that's their thing, but it's almost like cheating, because I don't have to, like, I don't know. This is a very Neptunian thing as a tangent, but my personal, birth chart kind of explains how psychic manifestations and abilities for me tend to be hidden or unconscious. So when I'm psychic, which I'm psychic all the freaking time, but it's always accidental psychic. Like, I'll say something to somebody and they'll be like, how did you know I was thinking about that? And I'd be like, I didn't know. Right? It's just happens. So maybe there's something to that. Why?
Well, for somebody else who it might have, like, a real keen ear for tuning a guitar or something like that, might actually hear the tuning fork shift ever so slightly, and that could also, like, there's other ways that people could find, is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. And actually, I can hear that stuff too.
Yeah.
But it's just a lot simpler for me, of like a almost yes, no. Is it there? Is it not?
Yep.
And it helps me. It helps me almost like zone out when I'm tuning. And instead of being hyper focused, I kind of go into more of a defocalization state, if that makes sense.
Yep.
I spread my awareness more out in a peripheral way rather than, like, laser focusing on the sound of the fork. And that is different than other tuners. But anyway, I hit the spot, and it's this back right in the middle of the back. And I kind of poke at it, and I'm like, is this a spot? It would be the solar plexus region on the right side. is this the spot where the pain comes from? And he says, yeah, it radiates from there all the way down into my legs. And it's like this burning pain. I'm like, okie dokie. So then I hit the fork again at the edge of his field and start sweeping inward. And boom, hit another snag. My ears are popping. There's clearly like a big snag. It's about a little more than halfway through his field. I say, tell me about what comes to mind when I say you had some kind of betrayal or falling out or loss of support from your father when you're, I think 27, I think was the age. And he turns around and he goes, what doesn't come to mind about that from that age? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Tell me what you mean. Because I don't know his dad. They're a more distant, branch of the family. Didn't even know his dad's name. But what my father was watching this, and my father was like, what do you, did I tell you about this? What do you know about this? And I'm like, tell me.
You've
what
unlocked
is
the party trick.
what is this? And anyway, apparently he had a falling out with his dad at exactly that age that involved some pretty serious betrayal, and it was never really made right in that father's lifetime, and it was a bad deal. So I just tell him, this is the psychosomatic origin of your pain, right? Unresolved pain mentally and emotionally from this lack of support from your father from this age. And he was kind of like, whoa. And I guess that was pretty close to the mark of right before he started having back problems. And it's been 6 months, and I've been getting updates every once in a while that his crippling back pain is just better, right? And this all happened in 5 minutes. He was like, it doesn't hurt. It was burning. My legs were burning even. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. He was kind of freaking out a bit. And I was like, yeah, this is great, because there was this crazy fractality to it of like healer, heal thyself, where my own father had up to that point a severe tendency to make fun of what I did and be like, oh, you're ripping people off again, huh? Like he didn't get it. But he witnessed this happen. And from that point on, he has never made fun of my work with tuning again, because this person he cared about, he was really close with this cousin, had experienced a giant healing, and he witnessed it. And the party trick, as you say, the party trick is what we call it. That's our inside baseball, when we nail it with sort of like picking out of someone's energy field an exact experience and an exact age in a way that blows their mind, because they never told us that happened to them when they're that age, which I call it the party trick, because I think a lot of clients are actually sort of on the edge of their seat waiting for the party trick to happen to decide whether or not they believe the tuning is real.
Right.
But it pretty much always happens. So it's pretty crazy.
It is. It's wild. It kind of feels like a mentalist in a way when we're doing it. I kind of want to talk about how we've adapted herbs into this practice. But first, I just want to solidify the visual for the listener, in case you're still unfamiliar with biofield tuning after all the things that, Chance has talked about over the years, or the things that I've talked about. But the premise is we have a field that's magnetically generated from our heart, goes out in a toroidal shape, kind of resembling an apple is the way that I always picture it in my mind's eye. And at the edge of the field is the furthest away from the present. So we could say relating to birth. And as Chance was describing, he would strike the fork, and the fork entrains through that resonant frequency, and then it reaches pockets of static, or the way that I always imagine it or feel it is like you cast out a line into the water and you reel it in, and when you're reeling your line in, you could feel the field of the water, and then all of a sudden, sometimes there's a snag, and the art
almost like, think of it as water, and the snag you're hitting, you could consider like an iceberg, right? Yeah. It's a chunk of frozen metaphorical water,
right?
Just sitting there, not flowing with the rest.
Yeah, the artist is discerning: is this a weed? Is this a bite? Is this a rock under it? Like what's going on here? And asking these questions as they come up, right? So that's kind of the idea. But yes, there's these pockets, and relating to water, that's what this field is. It's a rarefied form of matter that we all have. And there's really no debate about it. However, it is still considered woo, although it's been, well studied by, like.
Yeah, the field itself is measured. Like that is part of materialist science as a real thing. Biofield is not a common word, but it is in the vocabulary vernacular of biology in a mainstream sense.
Yeah, it's so that's basically what's going on here. Just using an acoustic generator like a tuning fork to tune into the subtle nuances of what's going on, and what your mentor, my mentor, Eileen McCusick has done is kind of found an anatomy that has a working anatomy that helps kind of bring to mind some of this causal aspects of where these kind of snags are. And so that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately is the anatomy itself. I was just talking to
I'd love to tack on one other thing to this too.
Go for it. Yeah.
Right. So this is life force energy, but it's also very mental and emotional in its composition. Once you're able to get a experiential practice or, tapping into the biofield, you can turn the idea that the universe is mental from an idea or a belief into like a lived experience that your body is inside your mind, not the other way around. Your mind is not in your body. Your body is inside your mind, and your mind is distributed in the flow of this life force energy in this toroidal shape around you. So when there's these pockets of stuck energy, the tuning fork is perturbing, disturbing, agitating that compartmentalized frozen light or frozen mind. So, a lot of times I don't even have to ask them what it is that I'm bumping into. When I perturb that pocket of stuck energy, they will just be like, I'm thinking about this thing that happened when I was X years old. And I was like, that's exactly where I've got my fork in your field, right? Because that stuck energy actually does have memory, emotion, belief, all are part of how it's constituted out of these things or contains these things. It's informational. So when we disturb it, those type of things start to re-enter the consciousness, because when we say it's compartmentalized or stuck energy, it's not in flow. That means it's not conscious. It's in the subconscious. It's separate. It's held off. It's pushed to the side, however you want to describe it. And that's the thing that's bringing detriment to the body, is that there's some percentage of your overall life force, health, think about it like it's a video game, right? You have 100 health points. And what if 20 of your health points were not available to you and you can only ever get up to 80, right? That's a way to consider it. And those health points, they have information in them.
Yeah. Yes. And so finding them isn't enough to necessarily redistribute them. That's part of the action of the biofield tuner, is just guide the let's just say the client into figuring out how to redistribute them. And this is one of the ways that I like to do that is with the use of herbs. And so we've adapted the autodidactic learning of this practice from Eileen McCusick, who teaches biofield tuning and certifies biofield tuners. And for those who are interested in learning this, like, first of all, anybody can learn it. It's really cool. It's very easy. You can just go on Amazon and get a tuning fork and then try it out. It's like really fun. The information.
I would get the 174 from the Biofield tuning store.
But you can go one. You can go
that one.
Yeah, if you're going to get
Sonic
one
slider.
Spend some money and get the 174, because you get so much information right away. And this is from the Biofield tuning store. That was the first tuning fork that I got.
That one fork is going to be the easiest to read, so to speak.
Yeah, you get
It's got really long tines, so there's more like of a wavelength for variation to come out in the sound, and it's going to ring loud and clear and long. So that's a really good, not just starter fork, but just like a workhorse fork is what Eileen calls it.
Yeah, that's pretty much my primary fork as well. But then, I wanted to talk about how how we've adapted throughout this process. And that is, for me, for my part, as an herbalist, like the way that I started working with biofield tuning is, you had an audience that you could just say, hey, who wants to do this? And a lot of people were like, yeah, let's do it. Well, I have a clinical herbal practice where I'm working with people, typically doing consultations and intakes and everything like that. And then I got over here on my desk, I'm like, well, I'm drawing a blank, so every once in a while I'd be like, mind if I draw a card on this? Like, oh, okay. Now I actually have a thread to weave in. Now I have something to talk about. Oh, okay. Here's where a connection is, because we just brought up something in a deck. Well, here's another way. What if I strike a fork here? Do you mind if I just kind of like strike this fork a few times and see what information it brings up? And sure enough, it started bringing up enough information that I would joke before that sometimes with my questions in herbalism, I was stabbing in the dark. I was stabbing in the dark, trying to figure out what is the root of this person's ailment, right? And so refined questions help get there. But with the tuning fork, which is literally like a fork for stabbing, it's like stabbing in the light. And so with a tuning fork, I would ring it and I would just illuminate a particular area that would not be on, this would be the party trick, right? Here's their whole health history. Here's their whole thing. We've been talking about things for an hour. And now all of a sudden, boom, there is oh yes, here we go. We got a subject that we could bring to light. Now, it's not enough to just become aware of these, let's just say, vital heart points that aren't available. We have to reclaim them. And a lot of times, because this is the mind, because this is, the principle of mentalism and the emotional things, it takes some work. It takes some effort. And the thing that we're going up against a lot of times is the patterns and the safeguards and the ego that has been put in place over the scaffolding. A lot of times though, you just shine the light on it and it comes right up. But every once in a while, there's a little bit of rebounding. There's a safe space, I guess you could say. Like, I actually felt more comfortable in my potential with 80 heart points, right? That's where the herbs come in. And so I've been working with herbs as throughout my career of herbalism is not like this herb for this type of thing, although a lot of people like that approach. But instead, like, how can this herb guide and offer your claiming of your agency to go down to the hole and, talk to the person. I'm thinking about Zelda. Talk to the person, be like, hey, give me my 80 health points back or my 20 health points back. And so herbs have been awesome because I've been creating these formulas for people through the biofield tuning practice that are just so foreign looking. They don't make sense at all, but they make perfect sense in the context and the specificity of the tuning. And so for going back to what you were saying about back pain, some people listening or watching might think, oh, okay, so back pain, does my back pain have something to do with where I wasn't supported by my father? Perhaps, but we're talking about
there's usually something to do with support if it's mid to lower back, because that's the part of your body that supports your body, right? But then there's individual specifics that can vary from left to right and where at in that back, and then for the person themselves in their life story. But
so
yeah.
throw in. Why don't you throw in then what herbs come to mind for this particular case that you were just talking about?
This particular case I was just talking about with my dad's cousin.
Yes,
that's a good question because I didn't really think about. I'm probably gonna say, just as a general, always a winner for this solar plexus level is going to be St. John's wort. I think that's obvious, right?
I think
that's
so
that's kind of a guarantee that's always going to be good. I would say that because it was so heavily right-sided, then we're getting into the realm of gallbladder, liver issues coming up as well. Hot, it's a very hot side of the body, the right side solar plexus. Actually, I was working with somebody the other day. How I knew that we were definitely getting to that realm is like, as I go through and help them get into touch with the feeling of flow in their whole body and sensing into different parts of their body as at the beginning of the session. And as we completed that circuit, I was like, okay, tell me how it feels, the whole body, the whole circuit, the whole flow. And she said, it's feeling very tingly. My whole body feels very tingly. And I said, is it really tingly or is it like almost prickly? And she goes, it's more prickly. And I was like, that's it, right? You're feeling prickly. And I was like, aha, this is what I thought, because I was getting signals about the liver gallbladder, and she was on a liver cleanse just coincidentally, that's how it timed up for us to do the tuning. So I was like, okay, we're really dialing in here. She had thoughts about her gallbladder. So anyway, I knew based on how she was describing this prickly feeling, like, okay, you're prickly. That means we're not necessarily dealing with something rage where you might feel a manifestation that was more hot, right? But prickly is more along the lines of general irritation, which has a lot to do with the right side of the solar plexus as well. And turned out that for this individual, it was underpowered on this side. They were dealing with as also a lifetime of scoliosis that they were curious about, and it was right at that point in the back, and maybe that was, she had considered maybe that was causing some bending out of shape of the liver as well with the curve in the spine. But in this case, and then in other cases that are similar, where there's generally a need for a healthier version of confrontation, that I like Arnica for this a lot. And the
Wow.
reason for
Yeah. I was
that
thinking the
is,
same thing. That's great.
are you kidding?
No, I'm not. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. You go and explain, and I'll tell why.
Well, I mean, I'm like nervous to even explain, like I'm talking to the master here. This is all me just kind of intuiting my way into herbalism, because how I've even started to form a relationship with plants. For years, I've been curious about them and trying to absorb through osmosis, through books I've read, or having people like Kyle on the podcast, but stuff wasn't really sinking in for me in terms of a working relationship with these plants as teachers, until I started bringing them into tunings. And that has been the greatest teacher, because I will get to see the whole body, the whole field effect that the plant wants to teach about and work with. And in a similar way, I started out with a divinatory method at the top of a session before it even struck a tuning fork to get one plant off a card. And 100% of the time, every time, it was the exact, the situations that this plant is good for in the textbook sense are always exactly correspondent to what this person was dealing with in terms of problems in their body. But then on the bigger picture, I got to learn how this works psychically and emotionally. And so with Arnica, the best way I would describe Arnica, generally speaking, is it's for the lone wolf to become the pack leader, or at the very least, like integrate with the pack better. And the thing about the wolf pack leader is that when one of those other wolves steps out of line, they're like, bah, 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 bah. They get up on him, right? Like they confront that. And so Arnica as a teacher, and when I say teacher, like what I think about plants as a medicine, how I prescribe them is exactly like this. In the tuning, we will come up with at least one, if not a few, behavioral shifts, perspective shifts that are really important for this person to maintain and practice in order for their bodily healing to integrate and keep in a long term. And Arnica is particularly great because it's so aromatic, right? You have that olfactory memory trigger. So when I prescribe the plant, it's not just because that plant is going to help them with the issue, but also because it's going to be their trigger, their ritualistic reminder of how they're to approach their behavioral and mental changes, right? So when I'm talking about conflict confrontation with Arnica, And when I'm talking about solar plexus issues, especially where there's really, we're dealing with things that are irritating that we just kind of shove aside and shove down, which is going to lead to the liver being overworked because little drops of irritating things start to fill that bucket until the cup runneth over, right? They call it the stuff and blow. For some people, they might blow up about it. For other people, instead, it comes out of their skin. Instead of there being like I get Hulk smash on somebody, I'm getting dry skin somewhere, itchy skin somewhere, or, other kinds of excretions through the skin is one way that it might happen. And then, the vitality issues that a weakened or compromised liver can bring about. So what the solution here is basically, behaviorally speaking, Arnica is one of these reminders or anchors, especially as an aromatic, that when something comes up that feels like a conflict or feels like irritating, to confront that situation and confront that person about that irritant as soon as possible, right? And it's not about being like hostile or blowing up at or being, mean or mad at them. It's about what the liver needs whenever there's this particular thing going on is it needs you to address conflict, essentially. It needs you to confront things readily. And when I say how, to be more specific to where this version of it applies as Arnica and a teacher, is that, a lot of the time, the conflict avoidance in people that Arnica is good to help with are people who they just try to take care of it themselves. Like, if you want something done right, fill the blank. And so they're not doing it for me. I'm irritated with their performance. They're not supporting me the way I would like or supporting the team the way I would like. So I'm just going to quietly roll my eyes and groan, and I'm going to do the thing that they didn't do on their behalf. And I'm not even going to bring it up to them. I'm just going to let it lie. Right. And so this is where the lone wolf becoming pack leader metaphor comes into play. Cause yes, it's true. The leader needs to be willing to do the things they ask their followers to do. But on the other hand, the leader needs to be able to get those followers to do the thing or correct them when they're not doing the thing right, and needs to be able to do it in a diplomatic way that maintains group cohesion. So to me, those are some of the things that this plant is really a positive teacher and role model for: conflict, addressing, confrontation, healthy assertiveness. What do you think?
Being in charge without the charge of that station, right? That's kind of like what the idea is like when you're all built up, like, all of the stuff that you've been irritated about, finally comes to a head and boom, it can blow, right? So there's a charge that comes from there. So the idea here is that, like, how does the individual address this charge? Does it turn into anger and turn into rage? Or does it just get stuffed down and it's like, I don't like feeling uncomfortable about my anger and rage, so I'm just going to, like, kind of cover up my liver with some dampness and coldness and kind of like freeze that function of it?
One of the people that I worked through this with was a 10-year-old. And what was really amazing is his mom contacted me later and was like, his behavior is so different. His grandma was commenting to me about how he's acting totally different. This is a kid who was like he was an Aries, right? So his conflict addressing tended to be in the realm of combative. And he also was dealing with the issue of anger redirection, where you're pissed off about something, but instead of addressing it where it belongs, you go and, like, take it out in the gym. Or in his case, you'd like, I just run really fast. When we're in PE and we're running and I'm mad at my friend, I run as fast as I can to beat him because I'm so mad at him. And this is an unhealthy thing. Redirecting is actually equivalent to repression. even though we're not taught that, we kind of get the model from culture of like, yeah, when you're mad, just go lift some weights or hit the punching bag or whatever. That is not actually in any way a healthy way to process anger. But so this kid, I'm told that he went from being, I don't want to call him a problem child. He's a great kid, but his parents would get notified of behavioral issues in class, and he went literally like overnight from working in this way with tuning to being the the teacher's pet. It's like he was getting called the teacher's pet in class by other kids because the teachers were so sweet on him after his behavior had changed. And so the beauty of when we make this mental switch about like, I'm going to address conflict and confront things when needed, when it comes up, that does not mean you're just mired in conflict and confrontation. It's actually the exact opposite. You find that you have almost uh, your conflicts and confrontations become unnoticeable or unmentionable. Like they become so minor because you're doling it out as it trickles in. And so it's just like a little drip here, a little drop there, like, hey, don't do that. Hey, I didn't like that. Done, over. Right. And yeah, it was cool because a 10-year-old is a great case study for all this since mm, their behavioral issues kind of tend to be magnified, right, when they're that age. So that's something I wanted to share too.
Yeah, children.
Teacher's pet.
Children give great feedback. So here's why I was thinking Arnica. So Arnica in herbalism is considered rubefacient. That's like one of the primary actions. Rubefacient means counter-irritant. So something that...
See, I didn't even know this. Yeah, but that's literally what I'm talking about.
Exactly. A counter-irritant. So if you have something... I'm going to give you like an example of like why somebody would take, Arnica, maybe Arnica 30C homeopathic is like a really common way that people would take Arnica. It's because they fell down and they sustained an initial injury. Maybe just had some dental work done. There's some sort of like abrasive trauma. Okay, so if you could imagine like
something is bent out of shape.
Something's bent out of shape and there's the impetus for an owie or a bruise, right? And so what is that? That's a collection of stagnation. And what does Arnica do? It just kind of goes to these particular areas. It has this intelligence. Or emotional intelligence. Like we're talking about the narrative here, the story of the plant and how this plant can like butt up against the story of what's going on in the field, and say what's irritating. And some plants might counsel that and say, hey, come over here, let me give you a hug. Oh, you're irritated. Arnica's like, look, we got some work to do. Open up the blood vessels. Like it really does assume this leadership role of bringing in more inflammation.
So, it confronts the issue.
It confronts the issue. It brings more inflammation in so that it can heal the process. It
literally feels like you're warmed process. Up. It warms up the spot. You feel the warmth.
There's a Johann von Goethe, he's that was his favorite plant towards the end of his life because he credited it for saving his life. He was like dying of some sort of heart disease or angina or something like that. And was doing a lot of like, woe is me type stuff. And he was probably the type of person that had a lot of rivals and also, a big social circle. And somebody kind of came to him and was like, kind of like the spirit of Arnica. I was like, you got to drink this. Now, I wouldn't recommend anyone drink Arnica. It's not a safe plant to drink. But, back then in Germany, they probably prepared it in a particular way, just like a dram of it or something like that they would call. And it restored him back to health. He was dying. He ended up partying that night and like celebrating with everybody and then writing wonderful things about Arnica for the rest of his days. So, yes, he was confronted by people that saw him in his bruised and inflamed state that was just going to, bent out of shape. So
again, like I come to herbs from this practice level where I show up to a tuning, not just to be the tuner for my client, but also for the last year and a half or so, not even a year and a half, year and some change. I come to the tuning as a student of like, all right, plant teachers, which one of you wants to be the teacher today? And so when I do that, I don't even necessarily have a full awareness in every case of what the plant looks like, what its seasonal behavior is like. There's still so much for me to learn and on the table. And I mentioned that just because I went and looked up, well, what's Arnica look like?
It
And
looks
man,
like the sun.
it could not be a more solar plexus
It
looking
looks like
plant.
the sun.
Holy crap.
It grows up in the
course.
mountains, in the sunny parts of the valley.
Man, it is such a cool, it is a really cool looking flower. That,
but
like,
you didn't know
the
that.
middle part? No, I didn't know what it looked like.
But yeah, so when you were
it's cool because
I
get I get shown these things in this more synchronistic divinatory way, and then all the information out there about it, or like the other aspects of what you could learn about it, support what I was shown in my practice. So I mean, this has happened countless times, over and over. Every time, it's never wrong. I always get the right plant. So I like about divination too. What I'll say is my way of understanding how this works is the wrong thing never happened, ever, in the history of the universe. Right? I mean, it just is impossible for the wrong thing to happen. Even things that we don't understand, there's like a good reason for it. So
yeah, you really can't argue that from either a materialist perspective or the opposite of a materialist perspective. Like there's no way to argue that logically.
Yeah. So when you make it clear, like I'm drawing one card and this card is going to represent this thing in this moment, and there's a lot of energy behind it, there's an investment of energy behind it, it is going to be relevant. It's impossible not to be relevant. That's all I'll say. Like, it's very trustworthy. I've been involved with card-based divination for longer than I've been a podcaster. There's a funny story that I've told before where the first time I encountered divination cards, I was back in my music festival days, right? And I pulled an all-nighter with some silly Simon, with some friends. It was the dawn had come, no longer really under the effects of it, maybe what you'd call the afterglow. And I'll go on a walk around the property. It's a small festival. It's like a transformational arts and healing festival with a little bit of music. Go on a walk around the property to watch the sunrise with a new friend I had made. And as we're walking, we see this other guy that we'd spent the whole night, or like many hours of the night, talking around the campfire with, this dude named David. And he is sun gazing. And I didn't know what sun gazing was yet. I was new to this, but me and this other guy, Yevgeny, were like, hey, check it out. And he's staring right at the sun. We're 30, 40 feet away. And as we're watching him, I kid you not, man, he turned blue. His skin began to glow and turn bluish indigo. And it was like an alien, or like one of those Hindu paintings. And I turned to Yevgeny and I'm like, are you seeing this? He's blue, right? And Yevgeny's like, he's blue. And our minds were blown. We're like, are we still tripping? What's going on? And I don't think Yevgeny even had done psilocybin that night. And as we watched, this lasted about 20, 30 seconds. And then he started to turn more of like a golden orange glow. And then it kind of faded and he broke contact looking at the sun. And I was like, what did we just see? I didn't even mention it to him. I thought that was just what I saw. And it was just coincidental that Yevgeny saw it. Anyway, we go to the campfire again. Now it's full morning and there's a circle of people and they're sitting down to pass out cards from this divination deck. It was a Osho deck of some, I can't remember the name of it, but it was an Osho-based teaching. And I get a card. The card that I draw is integration. And I'm like, whoa, because the whole night that I was going through the psilocybin trip, the buzzword in my mind that I kept focusing on was integration. I wanted to integrate some shadow, integration. It's like, that was my mantra the whole night. And I draw the card integration. So I'm blown away about that. And then I see the card that this dude, David, who had turned blue, drew. And the card was transformation. And it had a blue dude sitting in the lotus position. And I'm like, what is going on right now? It blew my mind like so hard that as soon as I could, when I got back to town, I went and tried to buy that deck because I thought there was some mystical power to it. I ended up missing the mark and getting not the same deck. I got an I Ching tarot that had a Osho school written guidebook, which actually is awesome. And I'm so glad that's the one I got because the I Ching is my jam. My point being, I've been, for the rest of my life and especially for the next couple of years, I would be trying to like get people to circle up and pass out a card as often as I could because I would love seeing the mind-blowing synchronicities. I was keeping a journal of like what cards were drawn last time to what were drawn next time. And there was always some cool, like, a card or two would always appear from one to the next. Anyway, I look at it, it's like a synchronicity generator whenever you do this. And I don't want people to think that it's fortune telling or like reading the future or like whatever gypsy pop culture meme you might imagine when you hear the word divination. Divination is inviting and invoking divinity into the space. And we do that by looking for the connection between everything and everything. And whenever you have this beautiful symbolic representation that you invite into your ceremony or space, it is going to reflect the space that it's invited into. That's as simple as I can put it because everything is everything, right? And I could go on about it, but what's interesting, I will add, is there was the majority of the time as a tuner, I used a lot of divination in tunings, and in the last few months, I've moved away from it. I still like to do that with a plant, and it's always amazing because I'm still learning a lot about plants, and it's just too helpful to set aside. But I no longer have been relying on it for, finding a pocket of stuck energy, being bamboozled by it and drawing a card to be like, oh, it's the 3 of Cups, heartbreak or whatever. Although that was super handy. And it was like, I don't want to call it training wheels because I think it's just as valid a method as anything else for getting a read on what's there. But as I've put that aside and been less reliant on it, put aside dowsing rods and some other things as well, and just gotten, I don't know, more comfortable and confident in my own intuitive ability. But even more than that, leaning into, where for a long time, I felt like I needed to maybe prove myself to the client that, I can read stuff out of your field and it's going to be like this amazing revelation. And, that still happens, but I'm really leaning into letting the client be the one who tells me what's there and being a less, I don't know, less structured about how I do that. Before I'd be like, it feels like this, or I draw a card and be like, tell me what happened when you're 16 that relates to the feeling of being left out or whatever, that 2 of Cups. And, they always have something, even if it's not a memory, it's like their body will reveal some kind of feeling that it's having that is actually been more helpful and informative. And also putting aside those, I hesitate. I'm not trying to call them crutch tools because I really think they're just as valid and useful. But as I've put those aside, I found that like the bing bong of something dropping in my mental mailbox about what's there has been a lot stronger, very congruent with, I just, what I like about it is not switching to drawing a card. It lets me spend more time playing a fork, more time listening to them. And overall, I think it's been a benefit to the practice. So I felt like talking about that because like if you're learning tuning, practicing it on people, it can be so helpful to just have that little extra guide of the tarot card or something in the middle of a session when you're just not sure about something or right, how about you do have an idea of what's there in their field based on the biofield anatomy, the positioning and all that, and maybe your own intuitive hit, but you're not super experienced yet or whatever. You feel this doubt of like, what if I say what I think it is and it's so dead wrong and it just somehow, by the way, this never has happened, but what if it just derails the session and they lose all trust and faith in me because I just blurt out something that's dead wrong, right? That is a feeling you're going to have as a practitioner of like, it feels like I'm just making this up as I go. And what if I get it wrong and I just compromise everything? So the drawing of a card can be a nice way to get a double confirmation, a little confidence boost of what I'm going to say is going to hit. It is really there. I've double checked, I've double, triple checked. So it's very handy. Divination and tuning, they do go together very, very nicely, but, I've just not been needing it myself as much lately, which is cool. And I love that I just let my practice evolve all the time. It's never the same year to year. And that's probably how it should be.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it's fun that way. This is the one I use. I use the Herb Crafter's Tarot. It's a tarot deck, but I use it in a oracle.
I don't have that one, but it looks cool.
Style. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. I love this one.
I'm really into the Anima Mundi Astrological Herbalism deck.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, I know that you like that one. The reason why I don't use that one so much is because there's a lot of plants that I don't work with in there, and this one's got like a lot of the Western.
Yeah, a lot of South American stuff.
And so the thing
But
about
what I like about the South Americans, to just really quick interject, the South American plants, is I feel that the indigenous lineage and wisdom tradition is a little more open to us in the South American cultures. For whatever reason, I feel like a lot of the Native American lore is a bit more guarded. But that's just my opinion. You could be different opinion on that.
That's interesting. I never really thought about that, but I think I'd like to switch gears just a little bit and also tie something together here, because we've been talking about mind. We've been talking about all is mind and how the field is a phenomena of that. You mentioned that the mind is not in the body, and that the body is in the mind. This perspective shift is an incredible worldview shift. It's such a great worldview shift, because to think that people like Sam Harris, who are like, everything came from the Big Bang.
Your consciousness is an illusion.
Its consciousness is an illusion.
It's not even real.
And it's just a bunch of things that are randomly, chemicals that are randomly kind of like atom balls of little things that are splashing together is what makes reason. Then, therefore, it is absolutely unreasonable to have any position worth its salt at all, or try to have a conversation with anybody else. Like, what would be the point of trying to convince somebody if their understanding was just based on random smashed balls together from the beginning of the Big Bang? That would be nonsense. So I feel like what we're at here is this end of this age of the axiom of the mind is within the body. Let's just go look for it. Let's go find a little file cabinet where we could pull out the people's memories. Well, just if we dissect them enough, if we separate it enough.
Right. Where's the clump of gray matter? Which cell has my memory written on it of July 17th, 2004?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's never going to be found. It's never been found. They're no closer to finding how the brain retains memories than they ever were. They claim that they're going to figure it out one day, but just knowing that alone, and just go find that out for yourself, right? Then where's your memory at? Where is it?
And so what we're proposing here is that it's like the old stuff, right? The mind is actually all around us, everything, and it's especially personal within our biofield, and therefore, the world, the way that we see it. And so, to me, I feel like a real touchstone or a real marker for the conclusion of societies acting upon that worldview is now. Like, I feel like we've exhausted, as a culture, we've exhausted the potential of nonsense. With relativity.
Don't underestimate the nonsense.
Okay, yes, but
we haven't even done alien invasion yet.
Okay.
Epstein files are popping off, and immediately when this is starting to get hot, Trump and Obama, both sides of the alleged divide, they're like, aliens are real. Aliens are real. We're both going to tell you aliens are real at the same time, so make sure everyone hears it, right and left. Don't worry about the Epstein files. We got aliens, guys.
And by the way, the way that they think is also because of the Big Bang's atoms smashing together. So don't even try to change their mind. And what's the point of them trying to change ours or influence it? And so here we are at this particular time, and I'm thinking about like the grand conjunctions that, you know, of the last age or of this generation, and we're just kind of like today. It's the 21st of February as we're recording, and I'm not really into current events so much, but I really do like this topic of the big conjunctions that are going on in astrology, because there's something that people have been talking about for years. There's something that people will talk about for years to come. And the one that we're experiencing right now is Neptune and Saturn conjunct 0 degrees Aries, the tropical. And
it's a crazy place to conjunct in.
It's probably the most significant place.
Right on my natal sun too.
Exactly. So here we are. We're like, let's reframe this here. Going live now with correspondent of Future Forecast, Chance Garton. So, Chance, you're not necessarily an astrologer, and even if you were, and we were to ask you to comment on this, every astrologer that talks about this subject says, "Hey, guess what? Nobody really knows what to expect here, because the last time that this has happened, the conjunction between Neptune and Saturn in Aries, was in 500 something BC, and that
really?
Maybe if we were to look at like what came about from that, they would say like the advent of democracy or civilization or these types of things, right? Like the Athenian state, and so." The only way that we can measure, like, and maybe even, I don't even know, we've already talked about it's futile to forecast, right? But let's just think about the energetic archetypes of what the scene is, and at least prepare ourselves a little bit for, prepare our mind to be in this world, to experience like the influential energies that, might be felt collectively for years to come, and also maybe even put this point as a touchstone looking back 10, 20 years from now and say, hey, wow, that's really interesting. So I figured it would be cool to talk to you about it, because you're the person that I know is the closest to 0 degrees Aries. I think you're a 1 degree Aries or something like that. And so the significance of that, which is 0 degrees Aries, is the significance of the beginning of the wheel, the beginning of the new cycle. And what are some of your thoughts that you have on Neptune, Saturn, 0 degrees Aries, what's going on? And I think that would be a really fun to hear about what you got. How you're feeling it in your body as well.
Well, you've really built this up like I'm going to have some amazing shit to say. Well, it is interesting to note that the last Neptune and Saturn conjunction, not in Aries, it was in Capricorn, was the year I was born.
Wow.
So, but that was that was November. I was born in March, obviously, as an Aries person, but still, I just found that out from the Google, so I've not given it a lot of thought. But 1989, right? I love being 36. I love tuning people who are 36 because their biofield breaks up into nice, even 6 years per foot chunks.
It's easy to divide, yeah.
Man, I've really gotten good at dividing numbers by 6, by the way, since being a tuner. I know the whole, whatever age you are, divided by 6, I got it unlocked. So I'll just give it a little anecdote, because there's so many ways that this kind of planetary stuff can affect or manifest in someone's life. Something I didn't realize until after the fact, right? You see me wearing glasses right now. I've worn glasses on shows before, but they were always blue blockers. I am currently wearing real bona fide vision correction at this moment. And I got these glasses the week before Valentine's Day, and Saturn was it was like Saturn had just gone into Aries. It had just happened. It was like on the day of, basically right on that borderline. With these slow planets, that border of degrees is very fuzzy. They're so tiny. They move so slow. We're in the orb, as my wife says about these kind of transits. And it occurred to me after I got these glasses, I come home with them, and I was like, wait a minute. I used to wear glasses when I was a kid and a teenager until I got LASIK in my 20s. My LASIK just kind of started to get fuzzy from reading really tiny font, old ass books, and being on screens for work. Uh, when I got glasses originally, I went back and looked it up. The year that it happened, Saturn had just gone into Aries. The last time that it was in Aries, and the time when I got glasses, it was the week of Valentine's Day. It was just before Valentine's Day. I remember this perfectly well because at the time, as a little kid, I was afraid that the girls weren't going to like me with glasses. So I remember super well being upset that I was getting glasses because of the Valentine's Day timing. So I'm like, that's weird. 28 years later, Saturn in Aries, and here I am getting vision correction again. Saturn is very corrective. That's kind of its deal. It corrects things that need correcting. And Aries is the head, and your eyeballs are right in your head.
Yeah,
so
it's like this, maxilla up.
Yeah. So what's up with that? I don't know. That's a weird personal synchronicity. That doesn't even bring Neptune into the equation, of course. How I've been feeling the Neptunian aspect of this is a lot of, as Neptune has switched over from Pisces into Aries, I've been feeling a lot of clarity, and a lot of clarity about what motivates me, my deeper beliefs, motivations, intentions have been coming more to the surface. Dreams have been really intense. Sometimes like 4 big dreams that wake me up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, same here.
So
actually.
strong.
Super same.
And then Saturn switching over to Aries too. I feel like all the work that felt, especially in those last degrees of Pisces, was taking me so long to get done. Like I got one show out a month last year. It was crazy. I mean, I had just become a father, so that's part of it. And I think I was skirting burnout from how much content I had been making for so many years. And so I just kind of felt the flow that felt right to me and focused my creativity in some new and different and interesting places for a while, until that, oddly enough, coinciding with this transit, I felt all of a sudden like, okay, I'm done with that. I'm ready to get down to business and produce things a bit more efficiently and quickly. But you know what motivated a lot of my shifting creative process last year was something that you were talking about without naming it, to tee up this conversation, which we're talking really, when you break it down to the basic yin and yang of it all, you're talking about scientism and the hard problem of consciousness, right? That this tornado goes through a junkyard and somehow evolves into intelligent talking apes with the illusion of consciousness. That whole chestnut, right?
And the objectivity of truth being part of that too, right?
Yeah, right. The it all boils down to there's two fundamental frameworks of how you would think reality operates. There's a directionality, and there's a bunch of ways you can couch this, but how I would describe it is you have quantity, which is material, physical stuff, number of particles, number of atoms, whatever number, essentially, an abstraction in a sense, but also a physicalization. That quantity creates quality, that it is the atomic arrangement, molecular arrangement of matter that determines the quality of that matter. And then, and then extrapolate that ad infinitum. And that's the materialism of the modern, reign of quantity, as it's called by the author and mystic Rene Guénon. Right. By the way, great book, The Reign of Quantity. I say the first 2/3 of that book are fire. The last 1/3 is him kind of ripping on shamanic and magical traditions and being a little overly critical and severe of some stuff that, maybe he's got some points, but I would just stick to the quantity quality dichotomy in that book. It's really useful. And then there's the idea that quality produces quantity, that the essence of a thing determines the form of the thing rather than the form determining the essence. if you're saying the form determines the essence, you're saying your mind is generated by your body. And when you go the other way around, you say, my body is like a manifestation, a crystallization of my essence, my mind, these subtle qualities of the spirit itself. Another way to look at this is like when you have a mustard seed, this tiny little seed, it grows into a gigantic tree, right? And where did the tree come from? Or I'm sorry, where did the seed go? Right? The seed is like that essence that becomes the thing, but is itself invisible, yet it's still there. Like that seed had the whole blueprint of what it was going to become somehow inside it, right? Or somehow informationally in it, related to it.
Right. With the faith of the mustard seed, you could move the mountain is kind of like one of the parables too.
Yeah. Yeah. So in this current transit, I probably haven't given this as much thought as you might have expected me to. I kind of just go with it, but I obviously, it looks like there's a strong potential for when we talk about Neptune coming into Aries. And by the way, Pisces to Aries is 12-1. This is the death and rebirth, right? Neptune and its malefic elements are going to contain things of delusion and deception and obfuscation. That's part of it. The ocean is deep and you cannot see what's in the deep water there. It's not all that Neptune is, but that's something that's there. And Saturn, in its malefic aspects, is going to be like authority structures that are in some ways very infringing on freedom and all that. Like it puts stuff in boxes and tries to keep it there, and I will talk about the positives too. But when I say there's a death and rebirth element, it's like we could see a restructuring of the methods of tyranny that is founded on a new delusion or lie being offered to the people. So I mean, I wasn't kidding when I said we haven't seen the alien invasion yet. I don't think that it's really a thing. Like I'm not saying I think aliens are going to invade.
No.
But in AI terms, it's not at all crazy that
the delusion of it.
Our parents' generation, boomer generation, they are having a hell of a time distinguishing between reality and AI on their social media feeds.
Yeah,
they share stuff to you, and they're like, "Look at this bear! He just roundhouse kicked this guy on his own front porch." I'm like, "That's AI, right?" That's according to my wife. Her dad is sending her stuff like that a lot, and
they signed off on the moon landing. And
they signed off on the moon landing, and they're holding on to it, clutching the pearls, man. Yeah, so
you can't see that.
Now, that doesn't mean everyone's going to buy hook, line, and sinker, but even millennials who are not as interested in moon landings or think it's obviously a farce, and who may even be hip to what AI is possible to do, those of us who are going to have a degree of skepticism to what the mainstream narrative is about things are the same type of people who have been curious and investigating the concept of extraterrestrials for a lot of their life, right? And the problem is a shallow or even a fairly deep interest in paranormal, UFO, abduction, extraterrestrial topics is going to make it look like it's real. But you have to go all the way to the ocean floor to see that, oh my God, this is like a mass orchestrated giant psyop to make people believe in aliens. And, that's too big of a conversation to have and just touching on it right here. But as somebody that has actually actively investigated paranormal topics under the umbrella of paranormal topics, which also includes aliens and abductions and UFOs and stuff for at least 12 years, seriously researching it, like it's probably my biggest area of interest that doesn't make it onto my podcast very often, because it's bullshit, man. Like, it's
Yeah,
not what
it
we're
is.
told it is. It's not. I mean, I think there's some really interesting stuff in the like relationship to fairy folklore and a more spiritual entity,
Elementals and things like that,
elemental,
right?
that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But the part of that, a lot of that is co-opted into the narrative that there are visitors from other worlds, and either A, they're here to save us, or B, they're here to destroy us, enslave us,
And we need to
experiment.
therefore we need the savior.
Yeah, one of the either they are the savior or we need a savior from them.
Right.
Those
So
are the
either
two
way,
things that are offered.
it's to perpetuate the victim story.
Yeah. So, without being able to go further into it, there's a real concern to me that this is the exact time to create uh, a very grand deception along those lines, because they're both of these planets are coming into a type of a rebirth, a renaissance, if you will, and it feels like the right time, especially with there's too many people that know stuff about for lack of better words, I don't want to say stuff that's going to get your channel in trouble, but like, you know, um, what's really been going on in the upper echelons of power that has been revealed by the Epstein files that people like my buddy Dylan have been ringing alarm bells about for a decade or longer, way before there was actually the release of these files. Um,
Way before there was a man named Epstein. Way before there was we're talking about cult.
He's a fall
cult.
guy. He's a fall guy. It's a system that, yeah, I'm sure he was deeply involved with, but uh, it's really crazy, I guess, is what I would say. How many people now know about it? What's really been going on? And Dylan, by the way, he's been deep digging into Epstein files, and I would say this is something anyone that's curious could do that he recommended. Just type in, when you're searching for stuff in the Epstein files, like top fill in the blank profession, top NASA astrophysicist, top biologist, top DNA scientist, top, you name the popular mainstream cosmologically,
podcaster.
Well, podcaster, sure. But whatever, look at all the different levels of the pyramid of scientism, or the Tower of Babel of scientism.
Right, that hold the material paradigm together.
Yeah.
And you'll
exactly.
find them, there they are. They're all mingling.
All of the chief talking heads for those different rungs of the scientism ladder, they are showing up in the Epstein files. So it makes you wonder, how much bigger is this than simply the spooky, satanic, abuse, ritual abuse, dark black magic stuff? How much of this, and even that stuff, how much of that is itself a boogeyman, smoke and mirrors? Maybe, not saying that stuff isn't happening, but why is that getting held out in the front right now and allowed to be talked about and seen?
Yeah.
When is there a much bigger picture at stake, which is, how is this network that has been exposed by, the sort of truth in the internet, how is this network involved with creating your perception of reality on a multifaceted 360-degree level? If you were to find out that the same people that are doing these behind closed doors, scary, abusive, ritualistic, creepy, sex pest stuff, if you find out these same people are the ones that are telling you you live on a globe flying through infinite void, you're a speck of dust on a speck of dust,
chemicals smashing in your brain.
You found out that those are the people that are telling you that your DNA is responsible for your body and your health, and it's just something you can't change. Genetics. It's your DNA. Yeah. If they're telling you, I could go on, right? They're telling you the climate is changing. Scary, scary.
And or the politicians. So this is the
politicians.
This is the one of the aspects too that could potentially come into play is the navigating a world of farming the reprobate mind. So it's like, here it is. Here's all the cards on the table. Are you still going to play? Are you still going to play ball? Are you still going to vote for your person and stand behind your person and defend these types of people, even though, so that would be the reprobate mind. And what that does is that creates this cognitive dissonance, this split, this chasm that is a void between critical thinking and the emotional capacity in order to hold two positions at once, which is, okay, well, yes, so-and-so was in the Epstein files, but now they're telling me and they're swearing to God that
also
aliens are here.
Just being in the Epstein files doesn't mean they're involved with anything bad.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But now we have to give our money to the government so they could fight the aliens, or now that we have to give our money to the aliens so that they could save our farming practices or whatever. And so the cognitive dissonance, nature abhors a vacuum, and so what gets filled in is that tyrannical Saturnian power that you've mentioned there. And we're talking about Aries, which is war, which has a not necessarily war, but the march, the movement ahead, the thing that is the
that was in the Epstein files too. World War III, February 2026 ? Like that was being offered as a time to kick it off. I'm serious.
Wow.
That's in there. I think it was Bill Gates that was in those emails, but obviously I don't think that timeline was locked in or anything. And plus now people are finding out what they were talking about. Here's what I want to say about the whole conjunction in this moment in time. All right. You have two choices ahead of you. You have the choice of either way. One of these things is primed to happen on the collective scale and in your personal life, right? Neptune, beliefs, Saturn, authority. So in this coming time frame, this year especially, but in the next couple of years, you're getting the option to reinvent the relationship between your belief system and authority. Is your authority going to be, are you going to let your beliefs, your innately held beliefs based on, your own consciousness, observation, spiritual identity, you're going to let those beliefs be your authority? Or are you going to let authority dictate your new beliefs? You're going to get new beliefs. You're going to get new authority in this reboot, this renaissance, Pisces into Aries. So how is that going to flow? Which one is going to be, what's the hierarchy there? Beliefs forming your authority forming your beliefs. That's what's up to all of us. But if you don't choose, that's still a choice. And you're probably going to wind up in the my authority or authority figures are giving me new beliefs side of that coin. That's my ultimate, grand generalization that hopefully could apply to anybody.
Man, that's well said. Yeah, just a reminder too, Aries, the motto of Aries is I am. So there is a identity, a self-identity. And this is something that I'm also, I have Aries rising, I have an Aries moon. I feel in it. Man, Chance, that's a great place to, I feel like there it is. That's the mark. That's the end of the cycle. It's the beginning of the new one. I feel like that's also a really nice mark to end our conversation.
Yeah, but I want to do this again. Have me back.
All right, man. I want to do it
this
again.
Is fun.
Next time, I'll make sure to get you some more calamus root, which is Vaka, the voice that we.
Yeah, I need some calamus. I need some cacao.
This is our inside baseball.
A little more of that cacao tincture. You got a little more of that cacao? I'm jonesing for that.
I'll make you some more cacao, man. Yeah, thanks a lot, Chance. Chance Garton of the Innerverse Podcast.com. You can go to the Podcast.com and
it's not it's just Innerversepodcast.com.
Sorry about that. Yeah,
I know.
Thanks for the correction. Innerversepodcast.com. If you go there, you could book a session with Chance, the tuning session. And there's also a really great resource guide on innerversepodcast.com. So we'll put that into the show notes as well. Where else do you want people to find you?
Yeah, on the website there, on the sound healing page, there are slide-like images that will give you a really nice general overview of the biofield anatomy, which can itself be a pretty life-changing thing. You might be like, I have chronic injury or tightness or pain in my left knee. And you go up to that website and you go see, like, what's the left knee about? Challenges with letting go or making change. Where am I struggling to let go of things? And, depending on the nature of your situation, if it's the back of the knee, you might have trouble being able to tell where that thing you're not letting go is. But if it's the front of the knee, you're going to know damn well what it is you're not letting go of that you should. And you'd be like, wow, that's really manifesting in my left knee. And sometimes just knowing is half the battle. So I do want to encourage people to go there. There's also videos at the bottom. I'll be this is complete 100% honesty. Your biofield anatomy, the knowledge of that is your birthright as a living being. It's completely 100% your right to know the language your body speaks and to know that injury, disease, discomfort, chronicity of these things are not something wrong or broken with you. They're a message that's being asked to be heard. A good tuner is a great translator of that message, and especially sometimes that message is a bit obscured in the unconscious and needs a little help with that external person, right? Yeah, exactly. Here's the slides. Kyle's pulling it up in the screen share. Thank you, man. I love tuning people. I don't expect that I'm going to run out of people to tone anytime soon. But on the other hand, it's more important to me that more tuners are out there than me tune more people. That's so much more important because that's what's going to be the best for you in your individual life. I've told stories about it before, but you don't have to know what you're doing, quote unquote, to make a difference for yourself or another person with a tuning fork and with intention. I've heard lots of stories from clients and listeners about how, something that they fixed for somebody else with a tuning fork, even though they, in their own words, I didn't know what I was doing, but I hit a tuning fork and this happened. So I think the biggest hurdle for folks is getting it out and using it. For some reason, and myself included, I'm a human tuner, and do I regularly or religiously or reliably always use the tool on myself when I ought to? No, I'm a human, right? For some reason, we have this thing, humans, where it's like, I found something that works. I'm just going to put that on the shelf forever. It's just, it's kind of a weird thing. But what I'll say, here's a piece of advice. Say you do have a fork or a weighted fork. These are great. And you want, it's much more effective to use it a little bit often than a lot not so often. There's a cumulative effect that happens, and the coherence, conforming to a coherent vibration that your body can do, it happens really fast. I told that story about my cousin who wasn't even a believer in the method or knew anything about it, and how we solved his lifelong problem in a long-term way in like 5 minutes. My daughter had a tongue tie when she was born, and the first month of her life before we got that resolved, which, by the way, the cutting of the tongue tie happened on a major transit that was particularly impactful for her chart. It was when Pluto changed signs, which is cool because she's a Pluto-ruled sun sign. She had built up a lot of repressed or backed up frustration and dissatisfaction because nursing was so hard for her in month 1 of her life. And that was manifesting as that type of emotional polarity does in constipation for her. So we started using the fork on her when we noticed she was constipated, and that would help her get it out. And then, so we were using it in like a triage situation. We have a problem we're trying to fix. And when we switched to, and we kept having to do that every once in a while, but when we switched to the method of every time we changed her diaper, I hit the fork one time, or my wife hits the fork one time and puts it on her belly over on the left side. Just let it ring out one time and then put the diaper on. It takes such a short amount of time, you don't even notice that it's being inserted, as opposed to like, oh man, she's really having a problem. She's clearly backed up. Let's just hold this fork here for 5, 10, 15 minutes and hope that it helps, right? Much easier to just do it one hit. You do that one hit as part of some other ritual that is a regular thing. Like, I mean, you could be the adult equivalent of a diaper that every time you find yourself in the bathroom to relieve yourself, hey, there's a tuning fork here. I'm just going to apply it to this spot that I know is a problem spot or a spot I want help with. And it's just going to cost me an extra 15 to 30 seconds in the bathroom every time I visit. Negligible, right? You're going to find that that is a way bigger benefit and easier to keep yourself doing
Mhm.
than trying to remember to do it or deciding to do it because you have some kind of emergency. So I wanted to give that little PSA because I think one of the number one questions I get is, how do I use this thing?
Right, it's the same. It's the same for compliance with herbs too. Sometimes just putting a tincture right next to the soap of the bathroom, just like
Yeah.
here, if you're going to wash your hands, you have to take off the tincture in order to wash your hands. So might as well take 3 drops at this time. It's more effective to have 3 drops multiple times throughout the day, in my opinion, than 30 drops or 60 drops right away at the beginning. And this for the same principle, and there's this, in the Italian comedy of arts, there's this guy from Bergamo, which is the town Nana's from. His name is Giuppino, and he's got 3 goiters, and that's because he eats all of the week's polenta in the morning. So he just like has all of the polenta at one sitting, and then has these big goiters. So there's almost like a gluttonous aspect to it as well. But sorry, I digress.
That's a gross image. 3
Yeah.
goiters.
I know.
I thought it was going to be like something nice because he's from Bergamo and that smells really good.
He's the master of the Arlecchino, or the Harlequin, the jester archetype that has come with all the patches and stuff like that. He's the master of that guy. So he's
my wife showed me this thing where there's some part of Italy where they have a festival where everybody in the town just wings oranges at each other hard for like a whole day or a week or something. And there's just like orange pulp on the ground and they're just throwing oranges at each other as hard as they can. People are getting bloody noses and black eyes and stuff. I'm like, those Italians go hard.
Yeah, I know. They could just use a little bit of Arnica and just face the conflicts a little bit at a time, right?
I guess it's some pagan festival. So speaking of, besides my website, which is going to have links to all of my content, I have a Substack, which I think is really cool. There's a Telegram channel for Innerverse that you can jump in and talk to people. Substack, Patreon, those are places to get the premium content. And my YouTube channel, of course. I do a video version of every show. But if you are an audio listener, there's always the iTunes or Spotify or other podcast RSS feed apps that you can get the stuff on. And I will say, if you have not, whether or not you've been a listener to my show, if you've never gone back through the archives of the show to years past, I do recommend it, going back into like 2021, 2022 and seeing some of the stuff in that archive, because generally speaking, my show is pretty timeless material and there's going to be, there's some exceptions, but there's going to be episodes that remain pretty relevant and will jump out at you as interesting. Not all of them, but a lot of them are going to be interesting no matter when you check it out. And,
to me, the most interesting ones are some of the shows that you've done with Dylan Secosio, which you've now are doing a deep dive exploration on comparative mythology. And I would say for that part, it is the best work that I've ever seen on the internet. The work that you and Dylan do with comparative mythology. We were just talking about looking at the little letters of little books and doing translations. I mean, the amount of time and hours, I mean, it's like a full-time job, it seems like, for the amount of work that you're putting in. And the presentation of it is absolutely mind-blowing. And so for people who are trying to wrap their heads around like some of the things that even, and we're talking about the e-files earlier and all this type of stuff, like how does this make sense? You could actually see the priest class and from time antiquity using the same playbook, the same tricks
to shape worldviews.
And the way that you show it through the philological, through the language, through the customs, through the symbolism, it really is, to me, the best body of historical lessons that I've ever come across. So that is the Inner World series. To me, I joined your Patreon, or not your Patreon, your Substack, just to have access to those, as well as your kind of your Inner Circle podcast that you call it, which is kind of like for your supporters and homies that you do once in a while. I really appreciate that too, man.
Yeah. I'm going to get another one of those out soon. I've just been busy. I've got plans. I've got a bunch of them planned. So thank you for saying that. And you're touching on a really important point to why is comparative mythology, philology, religion, and symbolism an important study? Because the same exact playbook, like in your exact words, is going on right now to shape your view of the world as was used to shape your view of history and your ancestors' worldview. It's the same thing. So, what we're exposing in a way with our deep dive into the errors in the mainstream academic model of history and religious studies is essentially like the Epstein files of the ancient world.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know I don't know how to be more blunt. I mean, it's kind of literally that. So, it's pretty amazing. And I'm excited about that work. I appreciate the kind words. I think Dylan and I do have something very special going on, and it's deeper than your average look. What we have, I think, that separates us from the herd is we are extremely diligent about our receipts for the information that we're sharing with
Yep.
people about this stuff. And a lot of podcasts that discuss symbolism or ancient history or any of these topics,
It's just baseless claims.
baseless claims, making stuff up, talking out their ass, repeating what they heard someone else say, taking quotes out of context, archaics.
Not
What?
checking to see if those contacts were forgeries or not. This is another thing. You go the
Oh,
extra mile for.
God, the number of forgeries. Good
Yes.
Lord. Yeah. So thanks for having me on, man. I feel like we've
it's a
been
pleasure.
doing this is the Midwest goodbye, as my Canadian wife calls it, where it's like we say bye and then we're still here 25 minutes later. But I just
Yeah.
love hanging with you, Kyle.
Yeah, I love
You
hanging
are a
with you
huge
too, and I'm looking
inspiration to
forward
me.
to
I've learned more
hanging
from
with you
you
in
than
Missouri.
anybody else except maybe Dylan. You and Dylan have taught me so much and have really shaped the way that I see the world for a big positive and improve the quality of my work and how I can show up for others. So big love, homie. Thank you so
The
much.
feeling is
Glad to see you doing a
100% mutual,
podcast.
man. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Looking forward to hanging with you at the Elementals Gathering in Missouri this May as well, and which you're going to be emceeing. I'm going to be doing a presentation, and that's something Topher's putting on, so I'll put the links of that in the show notes too. But Chance, my man, I'm going to let you get back to your beautiful family, and thank you for being my my homie that we get to share pictures of our kids that are born around the same time, and it's just it's awesome being good buddies with you. I really appreciate you, man. Much love.
Ciao.
Ciao.